1, 2, 3, the lawn feed.
Welcome to another episode of the Lawn Feed Podcast, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody out there. I am Andrew, the Dad Bod Lawn. With me is Chris from Opitz Mow Time and Vince from Rooted Lawn Co. And on this special episode of the Lawn Feed Podcast, we are switching gears from talking about growing and maintaining grass to discussing artificial turf, more specifically, sports field turf. Field turf is becoming very popular for sports fields, from football to soccer to baseball and more. But it doesn't come without its controversy about player safety. A lot of our children are now growing up playing on these fields, and there is so much to consider about their safety when playing on artificial turf fields. So we have brought back our friend Spin Martin to discuss and educate on artificial turf and everything we need to consider to keep our athletes safe. Spin, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast for the second time. And if you guys have not listened to the first episode with Spin, head back to Season 2, Episode 4. And it's a great listen where we talked about his experience in the NFL, working on sports fields, and all the days of the Super Bowl on the crew. So, But before we get into it, we need to thank our friends over at Twin City Seed.
We do. Thank you, friends at Twin City Seed, as always, for powering yet another episode and season of the Lawn Feed Podcast. Twin City Seed offers the most elite quality custom blends of grass seed to homeowners, turf professionals, and more. Shipping is in all 50 states and also in Canada. Check them out at www.twincityseed.com and also at twincityseed.ca for the Canada folk. And enjoy the biggest sale of the year with their pre-sale event in January, where you're going to get 20% off any grass seed, including their After Dark series. So make sure you go check that out. Any information on the sale is always located in their banner.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah.
And Spin, what better way to welcome you back than to just grill you with some wins and losses on a segment that we call Dad's Wins and Losses. Let's get into it.
A lawn feed tradition where we tap into who we are at heart. Dads! This is Dad's Wins and Losses, where we tap into our inner dad bod father figures and highlight some of the recent wins we've experienced as parents, and of course, vent about the embarrassing losses we take each and every day as dads.
I love Daddy.
I don't think that was there the last time you were here.
I don't know, definitely wasn't.
Definitely wasn't. Look at us. We're like a real podcast now. We've grown
That
up.
gave me chills.
That was just the response we were hoping for.
Perfect.
So as a nice welcome back, we're going to hand the ball off to you. Got a dad win, dad loss. We've got a lot of losses if you don't have those. Let's hear about them.
I've got a win. My oldest daughter got married.
Congrats.
Got married to Lucas out there in Sheridan, Wyoming, and they had a little elopement out in the mountains. Not too many people were there, but it was a little private ceremony, and my wife and my daughter snuck up there and got in it. So it was pretty nice, really beautiful.
That's awesome. That was recent.
Congratulations.
That was recently, you said?
Yeah.
Obviously.
It was the end of the summer, so it wasn't too far back. I mean, for me, the memory's like right there. So
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Well,
That's super exciting.
That
thank
sounds
you. That
perfect.
was a big win.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And it sounds like you are a perfect dad. There are no losses. You're not taking those anymore, which is good. Unless you do, you tell us,
No, I
we've got-
don't think I have any losses.
because we've got plenty. Andrew, you said you've got one.
Yeah, just recently, like 3 days ago, my daughter has a crystal stem flower. It's like almost like a golf ball base with like 4 glass stems, and it was above her bed. And of course, the kids were playing on her bed and knocked it over and it broke. We picked up the stems, but the golf ball base thing fell underneath her bed. Well, I woke up Saturday morning and my kids are, Dad, can you get this out from underneath the bed for us? We want it out, I'm like, fine. Grab a hockey stick and I reach under there, grab it out. I go, here you go, guys. And I walked out, made my coffee, had my stroopwafel, all that good stuff, right? And we were well aware these kids are playing with this broken glass base. And 2 hours later, my daughter walks into the living room where my wife and I are, and I cut my thumb. And sure enough, blood's just pouring down her entire hand. And I'm like, oh boy. I see blood every day. I deal with it. It's nothing to me. I'm like, come over here. Let me look and see how deep this is. I tried to, pulled some pressure for a minute, let off just to see how deep it is, and it was bleeding so fast that I'm like, we got to go somewhere. So luckily, no stitches were needed. We just got it glued. But the whole inside of her thumb gashed pretty good. So that's a big loss, because I would say that's 99% my fault and my wife's fault for letting the kids play with that. We just had a huge mental brain lapse. So, but
Hey,
learning moment.
Noted.
It happens.
It happens. You're going to become better because of it, Andrew.
And someday she'll get married like Spin's daughter, and I won't have any losses anymore.
Right. Right. That's just it. Well, we're going to keep that segment real brief because we got some really, really cool stuff to talk about with one of the best out there. But Spin, tell us just a little bit about you for those who haven't heard the other episode, your involvement in turf research, and what led you here today.
Well, I spent 28 years in the NFL. So, and I started off, I was working for the Royals and the Chiefs, and George Toma, as you know, he was the head groundskeeper for both stadiums, which is probably unheard of back there in the day. But so I got a chance to learn a little bit of both football fields and baseball fields, and what kind of pressure each field takes. So along with that, that's where I got my knowledge. And then I jumped into the NFL and traveled all over the world doing American Bowls, Pro Bowls, and Super Bowls. And then finally took the head groundskeeper job for the Charlotte Panthers, the Carolina Panthers. And then just actually followed Bill Polian around. And then I just retired from the NFL. But along the way, there's so many things that I learned, like artificial turf and all different types of grass and soils and stuff like that. So I was really fortunate to learn a lot, from three major individuals. George Toma and James Watson and then Scott's company with fertilizer. They had a lot of good people that worked for them that taught me a lot about fertilizing and what to put down and what not to put down. But then I got really heavy into artificial turf because I went to the Indianapolis Colts. Most people don't think that, they play on turf. They play on artificial turf and they play on carpet, but they practice on grass. So we had 3 grass practice fields, and they practice on grass 7 days a week. They're out there touching that grass 7 days a week. A lot of pressure out there. And we just play the games. Every game for the Colts was a road game. We always had to pack up no matter where we went, even if we were playing home or away. But, I got a lot into research and doing research. Everybody was getting into this field turf, split filament, artificial turf. And we kind of held back, and we just kept playing on that carpet that, burns every time you slide on it or it just burns you up. So everybody had to wear all kinds of protection and stuff like that. And you had to wear special tennis shoes on it, and stuff like that. So we were one of the last ones that went that route. But I did a lot of research and found out that there's a lot of patents that were made, on these fields and the corn rows between the rows of the fibers, how much width is between them, and which really causes the stuff, the infield, to stay in there and not migrate. So Field Turf had a patent on their distance between the corn rows. I call them corn rows, but and it played a big major part of the turf. And everybody else would just slap their turf together and put their corn rows really close together. And so there's a lot of things I did, a lot of testing on my own, and that's how I got involved with the artificial turf and stuff. I put all these. We had when it came time for us to go that route, because everybody was complaining about playing on that carpet, the AstroTurf. Because it beats you up even worse than what it does now. I just had this big, long field open at the RCA Dome. And I had 12 companies come in there and put a sample piece down. It was like 40 by 50 piece. And they all put stands on it saying what kind of turf it was. This is Field Turf Field. This is Astral Turf Field, and all the way down. General Turf, all the way down. There's 12 different companies. And so they had each representative in there. And we had 4 players from the Colts and all the coaches. And what I did is I had them put all these cleats on, different cleats, and I told all the representatives to leave the room. And I went by and took all the name tags off all the turf, all the sample turfs that they put out there. And then I let the players in with the coaches. And I said, hey, run, cut, push, do whatever you guys do on the field on these pieces of samples out here. So everybody did that. And then I had a little voting card, and I had them all numbered. So I said, vote on the turf that you feel is most comfortable. Because, receivers went out there and they cut on it, they backpedaled and stuff like that. And linemen just stood on it. And the coaches, they walked on it and stuff with just regular shoes. But anyway, they all, about 80% or 90% have picked this one field out of all of them. And they were just like dying for me to flip the card over to tell them what it was. And it was field turf split filament. There was some monofilaments out there and stuff. So they liked that field. So that's during the process for me getting all this together and thinking of this concept of them to pick the field because nobody knew what field to go with. We decided to let the players decide what field felt best to them. And this is the best way to do it. And in doing that, I learned so much information from all these different type of turfs and how they were made. And they're pretty much all made right there in Dalton, Georgia. Heck, one guy might make all of them, So they all come from the same machine, but everybody's patent stops people from copying stuff back in the day. I don't know how it is now, but that's how I got into the artificial turf, the side of it instead of growing grass. And now I'm trying to just clean grass, and that's how it started.
Right. And obviously there was a lot of differences there, right? So I'm anxious to hear like what particularly made those different. But like when a facility decides to switch from grass, or like actual grass to artificial turf, like what does that look like? Why would they be doing that back when you were doing it? And where does that bring us to today?
One place that really, really disturbs me a lot was the Carolina Panthers. So when I was there for 6 years and taking care of the field, I never got to resod because it wasn't in the budget because we were so new of a team. And the stadium was the first stadium that sold PSLs. So, each person that had a season ticket, they had to buy their seat, let alone buy the ticket. It's called the personal seat license, right? It's the first time it's ever been done. And that pretty much paid like maybe 60 to 70% of the stadium. So, but that stadium, in the process of being built, they took out the heating cables and they built the stadium more upright instead of out like this, for the sunlight to come down in it. So when we saw it, it was in the middle of the summer. So naturally the grass was green when it came in. But the next year, my practice fields came in, which was in a wide open area, and the stadium field did not come in. So, they built the stadium straight up because they want to give you the feel that you're over the field and you're much closer to the field, right? But in doing that, it created a lot of problems. So it was very difficult to grow grass. And the only way that I kept it alive was I had a sprig right in May, right when I got probably 4 hours of sunlight coming directly over the stadium instead of at an angle. Right? So I didn't have much shade. So that's when I sprig it. And I would have to sprig it every year instead of resodding it. I resodded down the middle for one season because we had a Carolina, North Carolina, and East Carolina, or some two colleges played on a Saturday and we played on a Sunday, and we had a hurricane that just outskirts of a hurricane and gave us 8 inches during the college game. And that was the only time I had to resod down the middle. But it was very difficult to grow grass in there. So I guess they just said, you know what, it's too much trouble. We're going to switch to artificial turf because I think the new owner of the Panthers owns a soccer team. So this turf that they got, they can wipe out the lines and the end zones and the hash marks and just lay out a soccer field, and have concerts and do whatever they want to. So it's more revenue stream for them, but it's not good for the players. It is not good for the players. But most people don't understand that most of the teams, they practice on grass, and I think maybe one practice, maybe two practice, they go full speed. It's a different thing for the quarterback to throw to the receiver. They can go down, they can do full speed every day, no contact, and get their rhythm down. But O-line, D-line, they want to stop the combat, in the trenches as much as possible. So I think there's only one day a week that they go hard, that they actually wear pads and helmets and stuff like that. The rest of them are just shells and helmets and shorts, So they're doing all this on grass fields. And then there are games that are on this artificial turf. One of Coach Dungy's policies is I'm going to practice what I'm playing on. And Peyton Manning hated that. He wanted grass all the way. But he wanted to get the feel because the speed is totally different on artificial turf.
Right.
Totally different. It's more consistent. The receiver can stop and turn on a dime. They can just stop, plant their foot, turn. You know what I mean? It's a lot faster game than it is on regular grass, right? So there's a lot of things that are involved in that. Back in the old days when a receiver would run on grass, he would pitter-patter. He would go and stop real fast with his feet and then turn. So that skill is not even seen anymore in the NFL. You don't even need that skill anymore, right? You got like Marvin Harrison did it real well. Reggie Wayne did it real. They stomped. They're used to playing on grass, and the DBs will hear that stomp and that pitter patter, and they know they're getting ready to change direction, right? So that element is gone. It's gone out of the game, and I think ACLs and knee injuries and ankle injuries are all cumulative. So you might have tweaked it on a practice field, just a hairline tear or something. You don't feel it because there's no pain involved there until it snaps, right? So I think it's all cumulative. And then when you go to the game, you go full speed and you have that contact with somebody. And, that I think that's where it's all the injuries are coming in at, because I believe it's cumulative. And I don't know how many other people believe the same thing I believe in.
Well, is there evidence on that? There's got to be some, right?
I don't know. I guess there could be. The NFL should really be studying this. They should be taking players and picking a few out that do a lot of receiving skills and stuff like that, and take them in and go get an MRI or a C scan, whatever they need to do to see the tears and stuff, and just do a weekly chart on it, and see where they're playing at. There's a lot of testing that needs to be done on these fields, but it's not all the fields. It's the cleats they're wearing. And I've been preaching this for 20 years. I had a thing at OSU, Oklahoma State University. They're getting ready to build a facility that's just going to be sports field and everything to do with sports fields, the knowledge and everything else. And I had a meeting up there. And, one of the – there was a guy there that used to work for Nike. And I told him, I said, the cleats are so sticky now that's where all the injuries are coming from, is the cleat. It's not the turf. I mean, Seattle Seahawks had this synthetic turf field years ago. Might have been 35 years ago, right? And the only thing that's changed, and no one's looking at this, is the cleats. The cleats. They've got a baseball heel on a football cleat. So if you look at all the fast guys in the NFL, they're all wearing these same cleats. They're feather light. They've got sharks on the edges, and they're molded cleats. And, at the Colts, I found them in the trash, and they'd be cracked from toe to heel. It takes a lot of torque pressure to crack that plastic. I don't know if you've seen cleats, how hard it is. And they would break down the middle. I'm like, oh, my gosh, that's a lot of torque. So what I did with it is I built a little foot, put it into a cleat, and on this foot, I would have a pressure gauge thing on it with a handle welded. So you can stab it in there and turn it. And I can turn it with all my might, and I can never get that cleat to move. Never kick out. And I can go on the grass field, and, I'm turning 30, 40 PSI on this thing, and the cleat's turning. But the same cleat didn't turn on the grass either. But on artificial turf, it just never turned. And I couldn't get anybody to listen to me because Nike's a sponsor of the NFL.
Of course.
Right? Yeah. All the uniforms are done by and the worst cleat out there is a Nike. It was, might have to bleep this out so I don't get sued, but they fund the NFL So no one wants to raise the eyebrows and say, "Hey, you got to slow down the cleat." So this guy that worked for Nike, he no longer works for Nike now. He works for OSU. But he told me, he says, "You're exactly right. All the guys at the combine coming up wanted something stickier so they can do the cone drill. So they made this cleat, and the guys that were running the cone drill would cut their shins and bleed right there on the field because the cleats were made so weird and angled, and they were like shark's teeth. And they made it for the 3-cone drill. And what happened was involved what it ended up being their special cleat that they made was kind of the copy of this combine cleat that they made for the 3-cone drill. They incorporated all the stuff that worked into another cleat, and now that's the cleat you see these players wearing. Just way too much grip.
So it's not necessarily the issue isn't necessarily the turf, artificial turf, which we'll get into a little bit more, but the biggest issue is, or the concern is the footwear that you're using.
Footwear. I never let my son, he played all 4 years of high school football. He was a receiver and a DB, and I let him wear the 7-stud or the 9-stud screw-in cleats. And he never had a problem. He got his bell clocked a couple times, but nothing to do with his footing,
So how many different cleat types are there? I'm not really familiar. I didn't play football. I don't really know much. I played baseball, but like how many different types of cleat designs are there out there now that people can choose from?
There's probably about 3 different types. I mean, you get the studded ones that you actually screw in, and more people are using them on grass fields. You can put longer screw or longer cleats in if it's too wet or anything like that. But, I got different beliefs on that too. But anyway, and most of them now are molded. And all the skilled players, the people that catches balls, people that throws balls and run with balls and stuff like that, the skilled players, they all wear the molded cleats that cause the problems with the ACL and the knees, the ankles and hamstring injuries. They all wear those because they're feather light. And that's your biggest money player. Biggest guys on the team making the biggest money is wearing those. O-line, D-line, they wear rubber molded usually. It's nice and soft. It's something that's going to give them some grip, but they're just in there, they're not moving or anything, but they get hurt too.
Yeah, I was about to say they go. I mean, the big tree fall hard, right? They're usually
But nobody really understands how artificial turf is laid down. I mean, you want me to go into that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we have some more questions for you about turf design. So
when they get like Carolina, they have a sand-based field and they got rid of it, right? They come in there and they take all the grass out. They redo the drainage and everything, and then after that they put 57 stone on it, real big rocks. So when it rains, it's coarse and goes through the cracks, right? And then over that they put chat down, and they level it with chat. So real fine. They kind of want to make it nice and flat, and they want to level it off, and the carpet goes right on top of that.
There's nothing else.
There's nothing else.
So
There's
it's like
nothing else. So the only thing that's protecting them is the infield mix. And a lot of people skimp on the infield mix, the rubberized and the sand and all that other stuff. And I came up with my own formula that puts down 10 pounds of product per square foot. Seems to be the go-to. So, that's like 7 pounds of rubber and 3 pounds of sand. And there's 2 parts of rubber. There's A and B, big and small. Then silica sand. It's in between. That's the only thing that's saving your kids when they land on that field is that 1.5 inches. And sometimes they skimp. Like there's products out there that the blade of the leaf is only 1 inch long, and it's put right on 57 stone with chat. It's like concrete. If you just imagine, it's like concrete, and that 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch of rubber infield, that's the only thing between your bones hitting that. That's it. But then you got to have somebody that really knows how to maintain these fields because this stuff just migrates everywhere. Every time a kid cuts and turns, that stuff just poof, it goes everywhere. So you got to have a really good maintenance program to level all that off, and you can't do anything until you spray a static control, right? So when I was there at India, I'd watch the players walk off the field. If I saw any black rubber on the back of their cleat, on their heel, I would spray Downy. I would spray 120 load jug of Downy, about 120 gallons of water, and I would go from end zone to end zone, back line to back line, whiteboard to whiteboard, and I would spray it all. And that would control the static, and that would usually give me about 2 to 3 weeks, and nothing migrates. So it just fluffs up and goes back down, right? So a lot of people, they laugh at me when I say I use Downy. You know, that's one of the best things you can use to stop the migration and to keep everything level. And then you work the field and level it off. You can grab this and push it over there, and because when you make a hole, you don't know where it came from or where it goes until you level it off.
Is there any concern with this filler breathing it in? You see these players in slow motion making these cuts and their feet hitting and stuff coming up off the ground. When somebody gets tackled into the field, their face hits and stuff comes up into their face. Is there any health concerns with breathing that stuff in or anything like that?
Yes. You got to remember, everything that they use is shredded used tires. Unless they go with Nike grind or ground or whatever they call it. So I got my dog back here. He's whining. I don't know what he's whining about. But anyway, sorry.
Artificial turf.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. So, you got Nike grind, which is old soles of shoes and stuff like that they incorporated. They don't have enough soles of shoes to do a whole field and stuff. But yeah, there's bad chemicals, especially on a hot day. On a very hot day, you can look across the field and then see the heat waves.
You can see
but you can smell it. You can definitely smell the chemicals that's coming out of there.
So when you get like these, you say that, and I'm thinking of like the hot climate down south. I mean, they're all going to these artificial turfs too, in terms of like health and all of that stuff. Like if you go to California or Texas or even Florida, like whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, they're always hot.
Right. And so how much more of a concern is that for players just for like heat exhaustion, dehydration, all that kind of stuff? Like
they really don't think about it too much. I mean, the whole time I was there, I was never approached by, hey, what's that smell? They just went along with it.
Mm-hmm.
They just went along with it. But every time I would drag a field, I would always wear a mask, just to stop that, the smell and stuff. Because I worked it every day.
Yeah.
So it was really, really hard to go out there every day and do it without wearing a mask, But we had an indoor facility too, and we had an outdoor field too with 2 grass fields, and we had an outdoor turf too. But it actually took me more work to prep these fields to get them ready than my grass fields. So, I've never had an ACL or any kind of injury on my game field or practice fields in my whole career. And I didn't know at the time, but that says a lot, I've come up with my own program on how to take care of the field and keep everything in check. I've offered that program to all the turf companies, and they just look at me and think I'm crazy or whatever, but no one took me up on the offer on that. So I've never had an injury. A lot of people think, they want to rake their field and make it soft. Well, that becomes a problem too. It's like walking on the beach where the water hasn't come across the sand yet to make it nice and firm where you can drive over it. So there's a lot of fields out there in the NFL. The monofilament field is one of the worst. So if you take a field like the Patriots field, it's a monofilament field where it means a strand stays a strand no matter how much time you run over with a broom or sweeper. Split filament field is a piece of fabric that will split and divide as many times if you fibulate it. So to me, that's a better field because it makes it more fluffier and holds the infield in so it doesn't migrate as much. Monofilament field You can go out there and pressure wash it. You can spray it. You can paint it. You can wash it. You can do it over and over and over again. But the infill migrates, and you got to go back to think what's underneath that backing of the turf. There's nothing underneath there but 57 stone and shack crushed gravel, So I was never a fan of monofilament field. When monofilament field came out, field turf, I told them this is the death of your company. This will be the death of your company. So, but they're still rocking, I guess.
In comparison to the AstroTurf, like that you were talking about earlier. So, like when Randy Moss was, playing at that bright green, right?
Silver Dome.
The Silver Dome. Yeah, all of the old domes that had them
Yeah.
when like we were growing, right? I mean, I believe I know the answer, but is there a spike in injuries on the new turf versus things like AstroTurf?
Yes.
Like taking
Yes.
natural
Huge,
grass out of
huge.
and so I'll let you finish that. Well, how come?
So the difference between the two is the cleats.
So it's
You
all
can't
cleats.
wear a cleated cleat on the old AstroTurf. Now it's just a polyurethane fiber, maybe at best a half inch, right? But there's a pad underneath that. There's a nice thick 1 inch pad that they lay underneath that. So it's got the padding of that, no infill, but you have to wear a tennis shoe type cleat. So yeah, no one's come out and said, "Hey, look at the injuries that we had versus the injuries we have now." So there's and the new grass that's coming out now. If you want to switch the gears here, the new grass that are coming out now is not much more safer. The stuff
How
that's
come?
growing on plastic, no one's talking about it except for me. How do you
Like the
get that turf on plastic to grow like Bermuda's? You have to top dress the heck out of it, right? To get it to grow for an inch, to have all that weight so you can put it down and play a game the next 10 minutes. You can play a game on it. That field to me is super hard. You see quarterbacks falling backwards and getting concussions on them, and no one's talking about that either. So I don't find anybody that's out there that's a head groundskeeper that had a job like I did. Had zero budget for sodding, and now if you have a bad day or a rain game, they just resod the fields and then boom, repaint it. And you got a brand new field, and the head groundskeepers gets all the kudos, but it's actually the sod farm that grow it. But I hate to switch gears. Sorry about that. But yeah,
No.
but that's another issue. Probably another podcast.
On the Bermuda that you're mentioning, so I know there's a couple sod farms around me that grow it on plastic. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so a lot of people. There's a lot of companies now getting involved. I think there's about maybe 3 or 4 companies that really know what they're doing. Like West Coast Turf, Chad Price with Carolina Greens. He's kind of the guy that started it. So a lot of people would want their grass to be grown with better drainage. Like I don't know if you've seen Soldiers Field when it flooded and got a couple inches of rain and the water couldn't go anywhere. And that's not the head groundskeeper's fault. That was just the weather and the type of field he put in. But so what they do is they lay out plastic, usually 9 mil, pretty thick stuff. And a lot of people have their own thoughts on this, and nobody will tell you how it's done. So I'm going to share you some knowledge that I have on it and what I've done in the past, right? So my way of doing it was to get the sod, right? Go ahead and cut the sod, flip it over, and wash it. So all you have is rhizomes, stolons, and roots. Lay that down on the plastic, and then just top dress the heck out of it. Just flood with really nice sand, fine sand, usually USGA graded sand, root zone mix. So you got your fines and your super fines and your coarse in there. It all blends together, right? You might want to put a little bit of soil in there to keep everything knitted together so it doesn't fall apart when you pick it up.
Sure.
So that's one way of growing it. And when it gets to 1.5 inches, it's time to harvest. So the roots go down, hit that plastic, and then just go back up. turn around, go back down, and it's just making it so thick you can't pull it apart.
So it's a super strong netting, essentially.
Right. It's all growing in together, and the median is growing in as itself. It's just attaching root to root to root all through it, intertwining. It's like putting a bunch of strings together, or you take your gold chain off and you got a big old knot in it. So that's like the roots. So they hold everything together. So then the plastic, when they unroll it, the plastic comes off, or they just go and cut it and roll it up and leave the plastic down. The biggest expense you have when you're doing sod on plastic for the sod farm guy is the plastic, the cost of the plastic. So there's ways to cut a nice even row, roll it up, and leave the plastic down. Then you just come by and blow it off with a big buffalo blower and start all over.
So that heavy intertwining of all those rhizomes, that can create some serious issues with the cleats getting caught in that. I'm sure it's better performance like the artificial turf of how they can cut better, but
yeah,
is there, I guess it's too new now, but like any studies showing that again?
There's none. I asked the NFL, so maybe a year ago, is there any studies being conducted on this? And they said, oh, yeah, we're doing hardness tests and G tests and stuff like that on it, but nothing about, hey, how hard is it when you land on it, with your helmet? How hard is it on your knees and your ankles when you turn and stuff like that? But it's you can lay it, set it, and forget it. That's how good these fields are. There's just tremendous how well they play.
And then you mentioned all the.
Go ahead, Vince.
Sorry. You mentioned all the plastics, and I know there's a big thing right now with like all the PFASs and stuff like that, and forever chemicals and plastic, and we're trying to get rid of plastic straws, but yet we're making all these artificial turfs. I mean, now we're using more plastic and stuff, and leaving it there. Is there more concerns with that?
Oh yeah. There's a lot of concern about all the extra plastic that we're bringing in. Somewhere it's got to stop. Because I bet you if all four of us tested our blood, we probably got plastics in our blood. And then our kids, it's going nuts. Everything's made out of plastic. So it's
because
really
the plastic barrier. When you have stone, and then you have plastic barriers, and then you have artificial turf, and then you have heat and tires or whatever, and then you have heat and all the chemicals and all that. It's just screaming bad news bears for me.
Yeah. But the NFL is not doing all they can on testing all these products and stuff, or coming up with a regimen on these artificial turf fields like, hey, you guys need to do this, this, and this, and this, because when you look at these artificial turf fields, it's like a big peach tree dish. You know what I mean? So someone's sick and they sit there and they spit on the field. You don't know where they spit on, but I guarantee you in 2 minutes they're going to line back up there. You know what I mean?
There's people puking in the huddle.
There's people that puke on the field. So it's just it grows in that sand. I don't know if you've ever seen sand with a little bit of moisture, it turns to mold. And then there's all kinds of stuff in there.
I didn't even think about that.
Nobody was thinking about this when I got the artificial turf, when we got it for the RCA dome, there was maybe 10, 12, 14 years that went by before we got our turf field, and nobody had a system on how to clean it, how to drag it, how to do anything. Within the 14 years, I think it came out. So I came up with the concept that, I saw this top dressing broom that people used on greens, and I contacted the company that are called Greens Groomer. And I said, hey, can you bring one of those over here? Mike Jones was the owner then. I don't know if he is still now. But so he brought that over, and I said, look, I want you to do something for me. I want you to change the bristles on it to make it a little bit more stiffer. He said, what are you going to do with this thing? And I said, I'm going to drag this artificial turf with it. He's like, no, you can't do that. And I said, yeah, I need you to come up and help me design this. So that was built, and then that's been one of the best things ever to level off the field after you spray the Downy to level everything off. That was one of the best things you could use on that. And then I thought, we had cheerleaders practicing on it. They lost their earrings, they lost everything. I'm thinking, okay, well, how do I find these little pieces of metal that someone probably dropped, thumbtacks or something out here? We would lease our indoor facility out to parties and stuff like that. And, they
Concerts.
won't make you take your jewelry off or your earrings out
Mm-mm.
when you come through the door. They just let you go at it. So I came up with this magnet. I got this real long magnet out of North Carolina, had it shipped to me, put some eye bolts on it, and hung it from 2 ropes and on my Pro Gator and hung it on the ground, just barely a little bit off the ground. And that's the first time it's ever been done. And I turned it over, and you would not believe what was on there. I found razor blades on there that was used to
What?
cut the turf back in the day. It sucked them out of the infield, and it
Amongst
sucked
other things.
everything.
Wow.
Hairpins, bobby pins, thumbtacks, you name it, nails, razor blades. I got it all. And then the Mike Jones guy
Syringes?
came and saw my little gadget. Then he made one, and then he started selling them, the little magnet thing, and then a vacuum cleaner. No one thinks about how do you clean sunflower seeds off of it.
Right.
How do you suck that sunflower seed without pulling the infield out? Because the infield's on top if you don't spray Downy. So then I had to use a Buffalo blower, and I used a John Deere 125 core collector. Just a little thing on the back of my Pro Gator. I just set it up because you can set the height to where it just barely touches the fibers. And I went up there and sucked up everything off there. And I'd probably get maybe a quarter of a 5-gallon bucket of rubber out of there. So there's a lot of things that I just learned by doing it. When it came out to do my artificial turf in the Colts inside the stadium, inside our indoor facility at West 56th Street, the guy was cutting out the backing and everything to put a hash mark down. And then he would put another fabric underneath, and he would put this glue on it. So then the backing was compromised. And then when he cut the hash mark art, he pulled it out. You can see the gravel. And he would put a layman under there, and then he would glue that white hash mark and lay it right in there. And I said, man, there's an easier way of doing that. And he says, how? And I said, sheep shear it. That way you don't take the backing out at all, and you just sheep shear. And I said, wait a minute, I got a guy that has a hot glue gun that will glue that right in there. Called him up, he came down, hot glue gunned it. So then I helped the industry do that. So now they don't cut any backing of any field now. And probably nobody knows that I'm the one that did that. Well, if you call Dave Stopchuck, who's on Field Turf installer, he's working for them now, but he used to contract install. But he's the guy that I showed that to, and that's how they put it all in there. But no one knew that.
I don't think anyone knows the maintenance that has to go on behind the scenes with artificial. Like, no one does.
They sell it to you as maintenance free, and that's what makes it so inviting to switch over. Someone that has grass fields are thinking, "Oh my gosh, we waste 40 hours a week paying this guy to cut, mow, fertilize, and then they're going to bring us in. I know it's an initial hit of $2 million up front, but hey, man, 5 years, 10 years down the road, we're going to break even, right? No,
It's a millage. The city's paying for it. Who cares?
Yeah, the taxpayers are paying for it. It's all good.
Well, and that's kind of what my question was. Like, I have is, I feel like every high school football field around me over the last 10 years has switched.
They're all switching.
And why is that? Because clearly it's not player safety.
No.
And is the NFL setting the gold standard and saying that this is what, is cool, this is what looks great, this is easy maintenance, and everybody just buys into it? Because I don't understand why everybody's switching to this.
Well, it levels everything out. You know what I mean? Your playing field is always going to be in tip-top shape. It's always going to be green, right? And you're going to have everybody out there practicing and playing on it. You can have a soccer team, you can have lacrosse, you can have your field hockey, you can do whatever you want to do, right? Band, they can just go and do whatever and they keep everybody happy, because then everybody else is complaining. The football coach, if it was grass field, they would say, hey, you know what? I don't want no activity on this. Our grass, we're losing our grass, because it's really hard to find somebody that can handle growing the grass, that has the knowledge to grow the grass and to keep it up. It's very possible to do that, but it's very hard to do that with the salaries they're paying these people, right?
Or the budget for
or the budget,
sodding and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's very, people are finding out that it's a lot harder to grow grass and keep it alive when you have high school kids, college kids, and pros out there every day, And when you go to artificial turf, you quiet the noise. You know, no one's complaining about, hey, they got 3 hours on this field and we don't even get 30 minutes. You know what I mean? So it I don't know, it smooths everything over in their eyes, but in return, it's really detrimental to the players and the parents.
I guess it kind of takes away the need for a practice field for some football programs too, or the JV and varsity.
Yeah, that's a good point.
One can be on the practice field, one can play on the main field, and it's whatever at that point, I guess.
Yeah. But if you don't have somebody that knows how to take care of that synthetic turf field properly, it can cause you problems.
Right.
You know,
well, you were just listing all those issues that you had, and I'm just like, does anybody do they take care of it? Do they have to train people that used to take care of the grass? Are they going through training programs to learn how to do all this stuff? And I have
see all these companies. You got to blame the artificial turf companies. You know, the Sprint Turfs, the Field Turfs, the General Turf, all the other companies out there that they put these fields in. They do a walkthrough at the end to make sure everything's done, everything's measured out right, and whatever. They might give you a little rake or something for a little piece of equipment. I just took theirs and threw it in the trash, but they don't tell you how to maintain it. There's no hotline you can call up. You know, like if you had a hash mark that came up that's a tripping hazard. You know, what type of glue do I use? How do I suck all the infill out of it? You know what I mean? And it's real simple to do. You know, if you see my Discord, I have a whole page there that tells everybody how to do everything. You know, for each incident that happens, like when the hash mark comes up, you want to take a wet vac and suck it all out. You know, and then use this glue that I put as isos glue that you put in with a caulking gun. But when you wet vac it, you dump all that stuff that you just got done wet vacuuming either in a bucket, and that bucket goes in that spot. So you don't want to go and wet vac everything, and then you got 10 pounds of rubber. You got 20 spots. You don't know how much to put in each spot. You know, so it's just little things like that they can really help people out just by answering easy questions. But they don't. They sell you the turf and they walk away. You know, the NFL was telling you had to cut the piece out if someone bled on the field. You had to cut that carpet out. You know, all you had to do is spray it with a little bit of water and Clorox, and you can disinfect everything, and you can just go on your way. Mm-hmm. You know, but they were cutting the Lions field. You can see a lot of squares. It's a new field now, but you saw a lot of squares out there. That's because people bled on there, and the NFL said you got to cut it out.
So anybody listening,
on artificial turf.
So anybody listening that maybe is a coach or athletic director or a sports field management of any kind that is dealing with artificial turf field, is your Discord, does that have some good information that they could utilize?
Oh yes, there's a whole section on there for synthetic turf fields. Yep.
And it's Pro Turf Talks is the name of it, correct?
Yeah, Pro Turf Talks. They can get the link off my Pro Turf Talks Discord. It's on there, or my Twitter page, Spin Martin 21. The links are in there in my bios.
Cool.
So
go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
Oh, you're so nice.
I cut you off earlier, so it's your turn.
Obviously, we're all dads. We're all parents. That's where my mind goes. You say it's not necessary. It's not proven to be the turf that is the issue. Rather, it's the cleats. So as a former player, I'm not anymore, coach, parent, watching youth sports, like what are the most important things that a parent can do with their kids playing on these types of playing surfaces to prevent injury and like player safety for their team? What are some things that parents can do?
Well, one, you have to look at what they're wearing. Okay. So, like my son, when he played, I made sure he didn't wear the hot new cleat that just came out that weighs 2 ounces. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He wanted to, but I told him he's not. So you just wear a 9-stud cleat or 8-stud, 7-stud, anything that's got the little 1/2 inch, right? That you can put down and you can test it. You know, you can push it down and kick their feet and have them see how much it grips and stuff like that. So that's the most important thing if you want to save their limbs, you know. But there's other things you need to do too. You know, if you got a kid that's playing football, go out and do your research and buy the best football helmet for your kid that you could possibly buy. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So I always bought my son a Riddell. I've got 4 or 5 helmets in his bedroom right now because every year they made it better and better and better. So, and there is difference in helmets. All right. You have the Shutt, you have the Shutt DNA or the Riddell 360 or whatever they're called now. There's a huge difference between those type of helmets because you can't fix your head. That's why I always tell my son, if you fall on an arm, a knee, whatever, don't fall on your head. We can fix your arm, we can fix your knee, we can fix your elbow. Never fall on your head. I don't care if you have to put your elbow down to save your head. Don't ever fall on your head if all possible. So I always went out and bought him the best helmet that money can buy, and shoulder pads. The Shutt is real big in high school, shoulder pads, but I went with Riddell because they've got a patent on the cavity here. So I went out and spent $150 and bought my son the best shoulder pads and the best helmet along with the cleats, and he never had a problem at all throughout his whole career. So there's things that you got to be aware of, and you got to do your research and your homework. Because they're not going to change the field. I mean, if you got artificial turf, synthetic field, they're not changing that for you because you don't know what cleats to wear. But you have to do your homework and help your kids succeed. Safety wise.
And that's football, right? So obviously you got a whole bunch of different sports being played. That might be universal between soccer, lacrosse, all of the baseball. Even like there's a field by me that went artificial in baseball. Like from a cleat standpoint or a player equipment standpoint, obviously great advice to go buy all of these things that obviously protect your head and shoulders and all of those different things. But from where the noise is on ACLs directly related to turf or whatever it is,
it's all in the cleat.
That's a cleat thing.
That's all in the cleat.
Is it a universal thing amongst different sports that parents can kind of try to prevent? And then I think where my head goes is at what age does this stuff kind of start? Okay,
so remember how I was saying that I think it's accumulative. So even though your kid might be 4 years old running around and tweaks his knee right now, he might keep that same rip and it might repair itself over time, but it could still be there and you never know. And then he can have a blowout, in junior high football or junior high soccer game. You just never know. So I don't know why the shoe companies, well, I know why they'll lose money, but I don't know why shoe companies or another entity comes out and grades these shoes on stickiness. Okay, that all comes down to is how well they stick and grip that turf. Because if you're standing there and it's gripping and you can't come by and hit it out of you, there should be some kind of scale when parents go buy their cleats and say, "Hey, that's a 9. That's really sticky." No.
Yeah.
There should be a warning 9.
That's a great point.
Lose your knee, lose your ankle, break a knee, break a leg, whatever. There should be something on there that tells you. You know what I mean? That would be a really, really big help if a company would step up and say, "Hey, we're going to test all these." So I asked the NFL for some money, and they didn't really want to do anything. So I went to the NFLPA, Players Association, and they said, "Hey, here's $60,000 right now if you want to go do something." Well, that's not going to even buy every shoe that I need to test. I need them to really think about the safety factor of this, and think about what they're doing because they wear this new cleat on the field. It's not for their game. It's for all the kids that are watching and love that same cleat. And they go out and buy that cleat, and they get hurt. And you don't hear about those kids getting hurt, So I don't know. I don't know. Someone's got to step up and do some testing. That's all it's going to take. And I don't want Nike to come out and say we're going to do a shoe test. I don't want Adidas to come out or Reebok and say, "Hey, we're going to do a cleat study test."
Yeah, it's not going to work.
That's not going to work. I wrote this whole program up and sent it to the NFL. They had this little thing out a couple months ago. Well, it's probably been about a year ago. They said, "Hey, if anybody has any ideas on why people are getting hurt, we can give you grant money." So I got together with OSU and we put something together, and I haven't heard anything back on that, but they were reaching out. to try to find why are people getting hurt on these fields and what's causing the injuries, and so it's basically the cleat. That's all it
Crazy.
boils down to.
I mean, think about it. How long did it take us to look into helmets with CTE? It took to some significant bad things that had to happen for
Yeah.
the word to get out on the street. Do you think they would learn that this spike in injuries is related to X and Y, but they're just keeping it hush? And
Yeah.
at
But it's
one
even
point,
worse
like you
now.
said,
It's worse now because the cleats that the players are getting hurt in the NFL are now trickling down to, the 3-year-old kids, the 4-year-old kids that start off, they have that same cleat that
jeez.
causes the problem at a much younger age.
Right.
So
you're saying if there was a third party study that was funded by a $1 billion organization like the NFL, who came out and said, "Hey, we're going to protect our players. We're going to go do all of these things, and do kind of the right thing," is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah.
You're saying that there is a potential for the issue to be resolved
Yeah.
in terms of finding the right cleat, avoiding some of these injuries or the majority of these injuries. We just don't have the funding to potentially do that, and getting the right person in there to do it.
Yep.
Hey guys, I think I know who might be able to help. Long shot, but the founders of Garage Beer, who tastes like beer. The garage fridge is always open. Jason Kelsey and Travis Kelsey may just be able to help us out here. I don't know.
Well, I know
Seems like the good thing to do.
Yes, they have the same beliefs I do. Every time I've seen their podcasts about
Mm-hmm.
the cleats and stuff like that, and I'm the first person to put it all out there, about the cleat, and I got shut down pretty hard. I mean, I got shut down from the higher ups pretty hard because the funding comes from Nike, and that's who makes the cleats, and everybody follows suits with that type of cleat. So they're all out there now. Everybody's making that type of molded shark tooth cleats with a baseball heel on the back, and that's out there now. But yeah, if you can find somebody that can donate some money, I mean, I've got OSU, Oklahoma State University, on my side on this. They got a nice little program there. If we had some funding, we can do all these studies, and not, well, they'll be very fair, doing that. So
the foundation is there. We just need the funding to do the right thing.
yeah.
All right, Taylor, do your thing. That's it. There's a lot of that out there. Obviously, it's not just pertaining to football, but it's like, man, the solution's right there.
Yeah, the answers are right there too. I mean, if you look back 20 years ago, if you look back 25 years ago, find out when the first field was put in. The
Right.
Seattle Seahawks. So they were the first ones to use the field turf field. I don't know what year that was put in. I think it was the 80s, maybe early 80s, late 80s or something like that. And, the NFL, I even made this sheet for the NFL on reporting injuries on every leg and ankle and knee injury that happens at practice. And I put it in terms of what type of cleat they're wearing. Take a picture of the cleat, the sole, the outside, everything, so we can start getting this data built up, instead of just sitting on our hands, go, oh, another guy, just, okay, find me another tight end, I mean, it's, it's just crazy. Let's start doing some stuff and do some research. Cause if you look back when this turf first came in, there was no injuries.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, the cat's meow was nice and soft and nice to land on. And you heard nothing about, oh, I'm slipping too much on this, or I need more grip and all that, So the study, everything's there. All the data's there. They can just compile the data and say, okay, look, what's changed? What changed in, 2003? What the hell did we do in 2003 when we got, 2,000 ACLs? Oh, it's that new cleat that came out. Oh, that 90% of the skill players are wearing. There's nobody standing back and saying, okay, let's look at this thing. Because I think if they did that, I think if they researched just a little bit, all the answers would be there.
Right. And it sounds like if you start saving NFL players' knees and ankles, you're just going to trickle down. You're going to save all of our youth, all of our kids. And it needs to start somewhere, and the fact that it hasn't started it's absurd. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
crazy.
Back in the day when you had an ACL, you were done.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
In the 70s, you had an ACL, you're done. Your career is over with. You know what I mean? If that still pertained to today, I guarantee there'd be something being done. You know what I mean?
Advances in medicine have maybe held back the
Yeah.
research in turf. Yeah.
Yeah. Most
So
definitely.
this might be a little advanced into a different realm, but for trainers that are training field hockey, whether it's high school, whether it's professional, is there anything that they should be paying attention to, like the field type or anything that they should be putting into practice that could prevent, other than what shoe you're wearing, anything that they could be doing as they're training or coaching?
No, I don't think because I think every incident that happens, every turn you make, every push off you get, I think it might be contributing to an ACL.
Yeah.
Or something in that effect, a twisted ankle or something, And I don't think the trainers, I don't think they can say, "Hey, take this special vitamin and it's going to, help you out." I don't think anybody knows, when little tears and rips happen, until that blowout the game,
Yeah.
that one big blowout, and it always happens like in a game or, very seldom happens at practice. So, but yeah.
And then one last question I have for you, until I think of another one, like artificial playgrounds, like turf playgrounds. Is there a risk with that? I mean, because you're typically just wearing like a classic sneaker. Other than the health implications and stuff, is there any issues with people putting turf for playgrounds?
The only thing about the playground turf is that if you wear a regular like tennis shoe, it's slippery.
Yeah.
Don't get the bottom of your sole wet because you're going to fall.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like walking on ice in some cases.
Yeah.
But so that's not good either. But the worst thing about that is the playgrounds. They get so darn hot.
Yeah.
It just that's more dangerous than anything else.
I don't know if you brought this up. You definitely brought up the health concerns about it in the hot climates, but turf fields versus natural grass, like if you were to have the same temperature, air temperature, ground temperature, I mean, how there's got to be a difference.
Oh, yeah, there's a huge difference. Huge.
What is it? Do you know the number?
Well, it's in around 40 to 60 degree difference.
40
Depends
to
on where you live.
60?
Oh yeah, it's considerably different. Yeah.
Because essentially it's like asphalt. It's stone underneath baking rubber.
Yeah.
Holy
the synthetic
crap.
fields, they just hold that energy. It doesn't bounce back off or reflect back off. It just goes in there and just heats, and it just gets hotter and hotter and hotter.
I was fully anticipating you to be like, yep, 6.5 degrees.
Oh no. It's well, one you can cook eggs on, and the other one you can't.
I wouldn't eat those
Touche.
eggs.
Jeez.
Probably wouldn't eat those. Yeah.
Good luck cleaning that egg up then too.
Would the magnet get that?
Yeah, you'll pick that right up.
Put it in a skillet pan first,
It sticks to the pan and then the pan comes up. Yeah.
Oh,
there
yeah.
you go. Crazy.
Jeez.
That's nuts. So, and then like from an athletic field standpoint, while we're talking cleats, but there's different types of artificial turf. I guess this is a two-part question. Is there any benefit to having kind of a mix between artificial and like regular turf in the same exact field? I know, like you mentioned, a soccer team back where the Panthers played coming in. A lot of soccer's played obviously on real grass. There's a soccer stadium by me that does half, or it's a mix. Is that common? Is there any benefit to doing that?
Well, there's AstroTurf kind of made a different type of turf, not with real grass, but they kind of imitated. They made imitation grass, and then they made the fibers. So, but it just caught everybody's cleats in it. So they made like a thatch layer, and then they put bristles through it, and it just I don't know. They're mainly used in high school now, not so much
Sure.
in maybe Division One, maybe some fields. But there is a company out there that does stitch a fiber in the ground in natural grass. So every half inch, there's a blade of artificial turf.
Yeah.
It goes in, it comes out, and goes in, it comes out. But it goes down deep. It goes way deep in the root zone profile for the roots to attach it to it, right? And it works really, really well with, cool season grasses.
I was about to say it's
So,
perennial that I know is
yeah,
that
that's
it's
the
being
stitch
played on with.
system. I forgot what it's called, but it's really big in Europe and
Okay.
the UK. Denver Broncos used to have it, but I don't think they have it now. But yeah, so that would work with cool season grasses. Doesn't work too well with Bermuda because every
Sure.
season Bermuda just grows over the top of it, and you lose the.
I was going to say, you
know.
probably don't want to scalp it either, because once you cut that off,
Yeah.
and it doesn't grow
Yeah.
back. So
Yeah,
Yeah, that was the main thing I was like kind of curious on, was like the maintenance of it's got to be completely different.
yeah, don't mow too low.
yeah,
Don't
and you
touch
can't
that.
you can't aerify. Well, you can aerify. You can do all the rest of the stuff. You can't power rake and do a bunch of stuff like that, but it's a little bit different. But
Yeah.
usually those fields come out at the end of the year. They usually don't stay there for year to year to year. But there's a lot of things, incorporated over that. So, George Summer was the first one to put grass on top of artificial turf and get to grow for World Cup soccer. So we did that back in the late 70s and early 80s.
Where was that?
That was in Kansas City.
Okay.
So, we did experiment with that, but there's no two that are mixed. Like artificial turf with natural grass blended into it. There's
Sure.
nothing like that's out there.
And then, like, from an injury standpoint, this is more just being a fan of sport. What field is just notorious for, like, there's got to be one or two outliers that stick out, but from a professional stadium standpoint, maybe football could be another sport. Is there one
That's
that
a great
sticks out?
question. That's a great question. There used to be fields that you can pick and say, wow, Chicago used to be one of them back in the day. I'm not knocking anybody, but back in the day, like Chicago's field, or sometimes it was Green Bay's field, But now they're pretty much all even. And the NFL ain't going, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on? You know what I mean? Now they're pretty much all pretty even, right?
In a bad
So you got
way.
the natural grass, the grass. You got the grass, SOP, grass on plastic being installed. Almost every grass field has that now, right? So everything's getting more consistent. You don't have to rely on the head groundskeeper anymore. He could be, I don't know. He doesn't have to be that great to grow grass on SOP.
Sure.
Just throwing that out there, right? So that's my beliefs. I'm probably going to catch a lot of hell for that, but you don't have to have much knowledge to grow grass to the SOP. But everything's leveling out now. So the artificial turf used to be able to go, oh man, I do not want to play in Pittsburgh, and I don't want to play in Philadelphia. But now it's like, phew, it's all gone. It's all leveling out. There's same amount of injuries everywhere across the board, and the NFL ain't going, why is that?
Yeah.
What's changed? And
The
it's
cleats.
the cleats. That's my opinion. That's only my opinion. The only thing that changed.
It's your opinion until we find the funding to make it a fact.
Yeah.
Come on, boys. Come on, boys. You got it.
You can't fight facts.
It is really, really interesting because everyone at your traditional Super Bowl party, look at it a couple years ago. There was an injury that went down. I can't remember who it was or where it was, but everyone's like, these turf fields, and this is just the other side of it that no one has interest in. When it's the thing that the world stops on Sundays to watch for.
Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy to me. But that's obviously a biased thought. It's crazy. I mean, it is just nuts.
Yeah, but you got all these kids wearing these type of cleats.
That's
and a
just
lot of kids, I thought when I moved here to Oklahoma, I would have nothing but natural grass football fields. Nope.
turf.
They're
Yeah.
all artificial turf fields, and I could not believe it.
Yep.
So, what a perfect weather condition place to grow Bermuda, right?
Bunch of
So, all
sissies.
these kids are wearing those types of cleats, right? I'm talking football wise.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to learn how to stop and turn. They just run, stop on a dime, and turn. Ball's going to be there, right? So they're losing all these skills that they used to have, you know. So they're all relying on that cleat. So even though you can make the safest cleat now, it's going to be up to the kid to put it on,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can tell him, hey, this is going to be a lot better for you, but he's going to say to himself, no, I need the grip. I need to stop on a dime and turn left or right, backpedal or whatever. So now it's even more of a hassle to get your kids to convert unless you get them at an early age and you buy the cleat and you tell your kid you can't wear this or that, right?
Right.
Today's day and age, they want to be the best, and so they're going to be wearing these cleats. So now we went over on the other side of it, even though you can develop a really safe cleat, now is the kid's going to wear it because they will fall down, on
Right.
something that doesn't grip as much. You know what
You
I'm
must
saying?
you must need the youth programs to step in and say, here's what you can't wear, because like in Little League baseball, you're not allowed to wear metal spikes. Like you have to
Same
have
with soccer.
in soccer. So
Yeah.
like there's regulations, and I obviously it starts with the research. It starts with the big guys in the NFL and college, and let it trickle down. But at some point, someone's in the youth programs has to step up and say, look, I don't care what you think is cool. Here's what we're doing. And after a certain time period, there will be that cushion where kids won't try to wear those cleats anymore because now the pros are wearing these cleats. Now I want these ones. And now those are the safer ones. But that transitional period definitely would be tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
$1 million question, and you might not know the answer to it, but I bet you do. In a world where all of the cleats are like up to the standard, right? What is the best, like, the playing surface now is there's two different playing surfaces. So if the cleat is like good, will natural grass or artificial turf out there today cause more injuries if everyone's wearing the cleat new standard?
No, I think the artificial turf would cause more injuries, but they might be a different type of injury.
Sure.
You know what I mean? There might be more head injuries or bone injuries or joints or stuff like that. But I think if everything was level across the board, okay, but there's really three types of fields now. Okay, so there's synthetic. Well, actually, there's four types of fields. There's synthetic, right? And then the synthetic was split filament. And then you have synthetic monofilament, right? Which a lot of players need more grip on because everything migrates a lot. And then you have natural grass. And then now you have SOP, sawed on plastic. And to me, sawed on plastic will give you the best playing surface out there. But I think it would give you more injuries than natural grass because of the hardness, the thickness, the stopping and turning, and you can stop on a dime. When you can wear, and no one's even said this or even thought about it, when you can wear the cleat that you wear on artificial turf on SOP, something's not right. When you can wear the same cleat on both surfaces, something's not right. You'd always have to change out a cleat, on different types of grass. Well, at least in the NFL they did.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But now you can wear that same, I think they were called Speed TDs or something Fly, that same cleat on both fields now. That's how good the SOP is. It's nice and tight where you can't even get down to the soil. You're just on grass the whole time.
Now, when it comes to the monofilament and the split filament, what's cheaper to make and install? Mono?
Mono is cheaper
So
to
you think
make.
you think that's what a lot of high schools and
No,
local
because
places?
the turf company is saying they're going to charge the same price. They might even
Oh, are
charge
they?
you more for the monofilm because it's new and you can wash it over and over and over again. You can put a baseball field down, a soccer field, and next week you can put a football field down. you know, and then they'll
Mhm.
probably sell you like a Zamboni machine to clean it up with brushes and stuff like that
I
along with
saw
it.
that the other
So
week.
yeah, but it's cheaper to make. It's you know, it's when they first came out, you just pull the strands. I don't know if you saw my Instagram. You just pull the strands right out. The backing wasn't even done right, but
That crazy.
it's terrible. It's a terrible turf because it's always too soft, and that's the other direction. Some fields are way too hard. I would rather have my field way too hard because I can go and rake it just a quarter of an inch, right, to a half inch. Not an inch and a half down. You don't want all that fluff. You just want it nice on top where the cleat kind of moves and it can still dig into something solid, right? So monofilament, you have no choice. It's soft or it's soft. There is no being hard. So everything is loose. It's like playing on the beach every day, getting sand kicked in your face every day. So
Well,
that's where that cleat comes in.
Yeah.
They want something
Yeah.
that's going to grab the fibers, right? Split filament, you get your traction from the infield, right? Because everything is kept right there, nice and tight. So if you can imagine like columns of trees, right? A palm tree, so it's straight, and then it's got a bushy tail at the end. The closer they are, the more they move, and the stuff in the middle migrates out like crazy, right?
Mm.
That's where a lot of artificial turf makes their mistake. On field turf, their corn row is like 7/8 of an inch, and when it moves back and forth, the infield still stays in there. So you're playing on the infield rather than the fibers. On monofilament, you're playing more on the loose infield than the fiber too, but the infield's not kept in there. There's no way to keep it there. So
Gotcha. Well, I feel like we could be asked you questions for another hour about
Oh,
this.
yeah.
I think we've learned a lot. I hope everybody listening has at least created awareness on how important this topic is for our youth and for the future of athletes, you know, especially being dads. This is a huge concerning thing with local fields. So, Spin, we really appreciate you coming on and sharing all this information.
hey, no
Please,
problem.
and,
Anytime.
and please keep us updated on if there's any new research that you're able to do, if there's any funding. If anybody knows of any funding, anybody else willing to fund, help this venture, please reach out to either us or Spin. And check out his Pro Turf Talks Discord for any information for anybody that's looking out for that kind of stuff too. So, Spin, we really appreciate you coming on. And before we go, make sure everybody checks out thelawnfeed.com for some amazing lawn gear like sweatshirts and t-shirts and more. Use promo Brad15 at checkout for 15% off your order. And on behalf of the Lawn Feed crew, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. Stay safe out there. Good luck in this week's venture of parenthood. And we'll catch you guys in the next one. See you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.